So a little while back, I made a video talking about the somewhat sloppy rollout of the Weeknd's then unreleased final album, Hurry Up Tomorrow. And now that the album's been out for a few weeks, I've been getting quite a few comments on that old video saying, "Oh wow, this aged so poorly, Hurry Up Tomorrow was fantastic." But to be honest, while I did think the record was good overall, I don't think that video aged that poorly. In fact, I'd argue that in light of some of the more recent news on this record, that video is only aging better with time, to the point where the messiness of everything surrounding the album actually makes the album itself a little bit worse. Before we get into the optics though, I want to give my thoughts on the project itself, just to prove that I actually do think that the pure music is generally really good. And don't worry, I'm gonna try and go quick, just giving my brief thoughts on every song. Starting with probably my favorite track on the entire album, that being the opener, Wake Me Up. Absolutely love the progression of this song. It feels like no wasted time despite being over 5 minutes, and the legendary electronic music duo Justice helping on production adds so much. We then get to the new big single, Cry For Me. Strong singing performance from Abel, but I'm still not in love with the rhythm of the drums, although the trap breakdown 2 minutes in is kinda cool. And to be fair, the Latin elements of the track do help with the transition into Sao Paulo. Speaking of Sao Paulo, I talked about it a little bit in my previous video, but yeah, it's pretty easily the weakest track on here for me. Just way too long, and in my opinion still doesn't really fit with the overall sound of the album, despite the 2 little interludes that sandwich in between. Baptized in Fear is another pretty strong highlight for me, with some of the best writing on the record, as Abel describes a near-death experience drowning in a bathtub after taking too many drugs. And while I do think this track is one of the weaker produced in the entire track list, the hook is really strong. That and the amazing transition it has into Open Hearts. I know everyone's been talking about them, but credit where credit is due, a lot of the transitions between these songs are just musical euphoria. It really is a shame though that Open Hearts to me feels so similar to the previous track. Moving to Opening Night now, this one really reminds me of the Repeat After Me interlude on After Hours with a similarly hypnotic sort of sound. But where Repeat After Me has a perfect length for what it's going for, Opening Night in comparison just feels a little bit too short for me. As a song itself though, it is very nice despite its brevity. Thankfully with the next track, Reflections Laughing, we officially reach the best section of the record. Abel sounds absolutely perfect over the simple guitar in the intro, and the way the track builds in more instrumentation with background vocals from Florence Welch of Florence and the Machine, it's simply amazing. Hell, I even like Travis Scott's pitched down verse on the back half. Very cool choice to portray the drug-riddled state of the Weeknd at this point in the album. And thankfully the highlights continue with the future-assisted Enjoy the Show. Now one thing I'll undoubtedly give Hurry Up Tomorrow points for is its surprisingly strong sample roster, with this track having the first of many standout samples coming up shortly. Lyrically too, I really like the OG trilogy vibes the writing gives off in this track. As much as I hate to say it, I kinda just prefer the sort of regressed writing style from Abel, as I find the more mature songwriting on this album to come off as pretty generic, compared to the unique toxic edge his earlier lyricism has to it. And can't forget to mention Future singing his ass off on this feature. I don't think these two have ever missed on a track together. Next up we have Given Up On Me, which has a really slick sample chop and a nice enough performance from Abel in the first half, but it does feel like it loses a lot of steam in the second with the more minimal piano backing. Things pick up again though with I Can't Wait to Get There, with once again a super nice sample chop. Though this track stands out a lot more with its more smooth, upbeat sort of vibe. Also gotta appreciate the Drake disses in this track as always. I will say, the song itself does feel a bit unnecessary in the grand scheme of the track list, but as a track itself, it is pretty nice. We'll talk about Timeless a little bit more in depth later on, but in summary, it's probably bottom 5 on the record for me at this point. It's kind of amazing how much this track grew off me since it first dropped. But we legitimately go from bottom 3 on the track list to honestly probably top 2 with Niagara Falls. It's got easily my favorite sample on the album, the drums have such a perfect bounce to them, and Abel comes through again with some super smooth trilogy-era lyrics, which like I said is my favorite version of him. And again, we get another fantastic transition into the next track, Take Me Back to LA. Though unlike Open Hearts, I think it really holds its own beyond the transition. Despite its much poppier sound, I think the instrumentation and singing from Abel hold up enough to really make it work, similar to an In Your Eyes, for example. As a longtime Weeknd fan too, it is really cool to hear the progression of his thoughts on LA, going from Cali's The Mission to Take Me Out of LA to now Take Me Back. Unfortunately though, Big Sleep marks the point in the album for me where I think it begins to drag a little bit. It's still got a nice enough sample like a lot of the earlier tracks, but after the admittedly really cool hypnotizing intro, it does lose a lot of energy for me, despite a brief appearance from legendary Italian composer Giorgio Moroder. Give Me Mercy is a track with similar problems to Baptized in Fear for me. While I can appreciate the point in the album's narrative this song serves, being Abel's pleas to receive mercy from God for all of the sins he's committed as The Weeknd, sound-wise, it's just way too sterile for me, completely lacking The Weeknd's trademark edge that he has to his music. Then Drive is just a total non-starter, especially with how late it appears in the track list. Not even too much to say with this one, just really boring in my opinion. We do get another highlight next up with The Abyss though. I love the very cinematic lyrics with this one. They really make it feel like the centerpiece of the album, with Abel abandoning his Weeknd alter ego for good. And of course, it's awesome to hear Lana Del Rey and The Weeknd on a track together again. They are such a great duo. Red Terror then takes us through a pretty interesting story Abel tells us about the real-life Red Terror in Ethiopia during the late 70s. It's a shame that I think it features the weakest production on the album with how captivating the subject matter is. Moving to the penultimate song now, we have the criminally underrated Without a Warning. Seriously, the fact that this is the least streamed song on the record is crazy to me. Perfectly anthemic chorus for one of the last tracks on the record, and lyrically it works excellently to wrap up some of the album's themes, especially in the outro. And finally, we get the title track, which is a very strong finish. Instrumentally speaking, it's nothing too crazy, but it works as a nice enough backdrop for what is, as far as we know, the last ever Weeknd song. And of course, it's got the outro loop and a hi for this off of House of Balloons, which despite being an overused trick nowadays, does function well thematically. So overall, Hurry Up Tomorrow is a great album when it comes down to the pure music, like I said, but I still just can't help but feel like some of the non-music aspects of the project weigh down the overall experience, in comparison at least to the last two albums of the new trilogy. First up, let's address the elephant in the room. Hurry Up Tomorrow is just way too long. And don't get me wrong, I do respect The Weeknd's decision to give his biggest fans a whopping 22 songs on his final album, but I'd be lying if I said that this decision makes for an album with a way worse flow compared to something like an After Hours, which at 14 tracks flows absolutely perfect in my opinion. If anyone's curious actually, this would be my perfect track list for Hurry Up Tomorrow. Obviously it does lose some of the moments narratively speaking, but I think it would still function well enough covering most of the established themes of the original track list. I also think that the way the album is sequenced is kinda weird. Like, why is there a 10-second interlude on track 3, followed by a full song on track 4, and then followed by a 20-second interlude on track 5? It just doesn't make sense. And then to make things even weirder, there's no other interludes like this for the rest of the album. Wouldn't it make more sense to space out maybe like 4 or 5 skits across the entire track list, kinda like Dawn FM did? You might have noticed as well that the lead single, Dancing in the Flames, is completely missing from the final cut, which I also find to be a pretty weird decision. Not that the song was amazing or anything, but I think it fits infinitely more than tracks like Sao Paulo or Timeless. Then there's the cover we have to talk about. I'm sorry, but what the fuck is this? Truthfully, I didn't love the original cover posted, but it fits so much better when compared to the After Hours and Dawn FM covers. This one, on the other hand, sticks out like a sore thumb. It honestly feels like it could be the back cover, if anything, with the way that the title and the track list are displayed. And I know that these points are pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but altogether, they start to hurt the overall quality of the album's world building, something which I think is essential to the success of the new trilogy. Now though, let's talk about some of the larger stuff, starting with the music videos. I already gave my thoughts on the very mediocre videos in my previous video on Hurry Up Tomorrow, but other than Red Terror, this trend seems to have continued. Take the music video for Open Hearts for example. Why on earth did they have to make it for the Apple Vision Pro? It makes the shit look AI generated. And then Cry For Me's video, while it does have some really cool parts, feels very subdued in comparison to how explosive the track itself is. Again, I know a lot of people really don't care about this aspect of the album rollout, but as someone who loves the art of a great music video, it feels like there's a lot of wasted potential here. I unfortunately find myself comparing again to the perfect visuals associated with After Hours. You've got the iconic red suit and glasses, the Las Vegas lights, Abel's bloodied face, the swirling hallucination scenes. The theming is just top-notch, front to back. Or even Dawn FM with the old man makeup, the retro radio aesthetic, the dark and almost demonic looking raves in the music videos, not to mention the phenomenal animated videos for both eras. But by far the biggest complaint for me with Hurry Up Tomorrow's post-release rollout is the goddamn tour. Not the tour itself, don't get me wrong, I cannot wait to catch it, but the fucking special guest being Playboi Carti? Why? Seriously, The Weeknd had literally so many options for a special guest to tour with, and he chose the guy infamous for canceling shows and lying about release dates. It makes no sense. Not to mention, Playboi Carti isn't even that good of a performer. I know everyone freaks out when he screams tracks off of Whole Lotta Red or whatever, but his performance of Timeless at the Sao Paulo show was so dead. Bro literally just walked around the stage with the occasional ad-lib thrown in. I just really hope that we could all agree to leave Carti's music in 2024. Everything from his personal life controversies to his constant shitty behavior towards fans to the recent accusations of his Timeless verse being AI picking up steam make it impossible to be excited about any of his new music at this point. Now, to wrap up my thoughts, I want to get one misconception out of the way. Do I think Hurry Up Tomorrow is a bad album? No. In fact, I think it's a great album, probably in the high 7 to low 8 range for me. Do I think the rollout and world building of the record has tanked my feelings on the entire Hurry Up Tomorrow era of The Weeknd's career as a whole? Unfortunately, yes. And it truly sucks that I feel this way, since if anything, we should be praising The Weeknd for his otherwise consistently masterful world building. Especially at a time where he could so easily pull a Taylor Swift/Drake and sell millions of copies of a 25-track snooze fest with virtually no effort. But it's because of how much I absolutely love the previous 2 eras of his career that I feel like it's necessary to explain why this one kind of fell flat for me. However, I do want to make this point clear. Even with my sort of mixed feelings on Hurry Up Tomorrow as a whole, it does not change the fact that I'm still gonna miss the hell out of The Weeknd's music. Even despite the few slight misses in his catalog, I think it is very safe to say that he is a once-in-a-generation artist, and music as a whole will not be the same with him gone. So there you have it, my updated thoughts on The Weeknd's Hurry Up Tomorrow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to see new uploads from me on Saturdays and/or Wednesdays, unless I say otherwise in my community posts. Also, I'm aware that this is going to be a very unpopular opinion from me, seeing the critical reception the album has gotten so far, so feel free to let me know your thoughts on the record and its rollout in the comments below. Just please try to keep it respectful, alright? And finally, if you'd like to support the channel further, you can now become a member and receive early access to all of my videos, as well as a special shout out from me at the end of them, as you'll see on screen right now. So join up if you're interested, it really does help me out a lot. But yeah, that's about it. Oh, also, I just realized that I completely forgot to mention the Hurry Up Tomorrow movie trailer that we got as part of this rollout. Honestly, I'm just praying that it doesn't come out as bad as The Idol.